These are the stories making the headlines at this hour. The IMF has slightly revised up South Korea's economic outlook for this year to 2.3%, citing a recovery in the global economy. It projects a 3.1% growth globally, but warned of the impact of geopolitical conflicts. North Korea says it launched Pasar-2 cruise missiles on Tuesday, aimed at checking its counterattack posture. South Korea's ambassador to the U.S. said that Seoul would not be swayed by Pyongyang's increasing provocations. The South Korean men's national football team has advanced to the Asian Cup quarterfinals after defeating Saudi Arabia on penalties. South Korea will now face Australia early in the morning on Saturday, Korea time. Good afternoon. We start with the International Monetary Fund projecting the global economy to grow by 3.1% this year, revising up slightly on strong performances in the U.S. and China. The recovery in the global economy also pushed up the agency's forecast for South Korea. Shin Se-byuk reports.
The International Monetary Fund on Tuesday upgraded its growth forecast for South Korea's economy to 2.3% this year. It is a slight increase of 0.1 percentage points from the previous forecast made in October last year. The fresh outlook is an expansion from a 1.4% increase last year. This projection aligns with the OECD's expectations and is higher than the anticipated growth set by the South Korean government of 2.2% and the Bank of Korea, which forecast 2.1%. The boost in South Korea's growth outlook came on the back of the robustness of its two major trading partners, the U.S. and China. The U.S. saw a growth rate of 2.5%, while China saw 5.2% growth in 2023. Globally, the IMF anticipates a 3.1% growth this year, up 0.2 points from its October forecast, largely bolstered by the strong performances of the U.S. and China. IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Grinchas expressed a positive view of the global economy, highlighting its resilience and the potential for a smooth and stable growth path.
The global economy continues to display remarkable resilience, with inflation declining steadily and growth holding up. The chance of a soft landing has increased.
However, he warned that the foundation for growth was weak and that significant risks, such as geopolitical unrest in the Middle East, persisted, which could affect commodity prices and supply chains. By region, the U.S. is expected to post 2.1% growth this year. China is forecast to grow 4.6% in 2024, an upward adjustment of 0.4 percentage points. Japan's growth is anticipated to be limited to 0.9% as the boost from last year's weak yen and surge in consumer spending begins to fade. The Eurozone, which has been grappling with an economic downturn, is forecast to grow by 0.9%. In terms of the global outlook for next year, the IMF kept it steady at 3.2%, unchanged from its previous projection. Amid ongoing challenges, the IMF emphasized the need for timely adjustments in monetary policy, enhancing fiscal resilience, as well as pursuing structural reforms for long-term productivity. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
High consumer prices and interest rates met the drop in domestic spending in South Korea last year, while the chip industry reached production lows. However, industrial indexes showed an upturn for the service industry. Moon Hye-ryun has the details.
The country's overall industrial output inched up in 2023, but hit lows in manufacturing production on the back of a slow recovery of the semiconductor industry. Data from Statistics Korea released Wednesday showed that industrial output grew by 0.7% last year compared to the year before. This was mainly due to increased output in the service industry, which grew by nearly 3% on year. However, the manufacturing industry saw a drop of just under 4%, its biggest decline seen in 25 years. While production of cars grew by nearly 10%, chip production fell by over 5%. It's the first time since 2001 that chip production has seen an on-year decline. The semiconductor industry's production levels went downhill from the second half of 2022 through the first half of 2023 and only began to recover in the second half of last year. Retail sales, a key gauge of private spending and domestic consumption, fell by 1.4%. That's the biggest drop since 2003 and came on the back of a downturn in sales of semi-durable goods such as clothing, despite a small rise in consumption of durable goods such as cars.
The trend of spending in the service sector was reflected in the data this year. We also expect prices and interest rates to have an impact on data.
South Korea's consumer prices were up 3.6% in 2023 due to soaring energy prices and unstable weather patterns, raising prices of agricultural products such as fruit. Facility investments also saw a large drop of over 5%, the largest decline in 4 years. The machinery and transport sectors both saw a downturn compared to 2022. Construction orders for housing and buildings fell by more than 30% last year, while it increased by 20% for railway track construction. 문혜련, Arirang News.
South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics saw its operating profits plunge during the fourth quarter of last year due to sluggish semiconductor business. But signs of recovery are detected, which is expected to continue into this year. Park Gun-woo tells us more.
Samsung Electronics' business report card for the fourth quarter of 2023 showed an on-year plunge in operating profits, in line with its earnings guidance revealed earlier this month. According to the company on Wednesday, Samsung recorded operating profits of 2.82 trillion Korean won, or around $2.1 billion, during quarter 4 last year. Dow was a decrease of over 34% on year due to deficits in the semiconductor sector. The chip sector's deficits were at 2.18 trillion won during the October to December period and 14.87 trillion won annually in 2023. But Samsung's Device Solutions division, which manages its chip business, says the situation had improved from the quarter before. Recoveries in memory chip inventories and higher demand for AI servers contributed to the lower deficits. In terms of the whole of 2023, Samsung recorded operating profits of 6.56 trillion won, down by over 84% from the previous year. This is the first time since 2008, during the global financial crisis, that Samsung has logged an annual operating profit of less than 10 trillion. However, Samsung says it will be focusing on expanding sales of high-value products, including high-bandwidth memory 3 chips and AI smartphones, along with other AI-enabled consumer products in the first quarter of this year, as IT market conditions are gradually recovering. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Samsung Electronics' first AI smartphone, the Galaxy S24 series, is now available to buy. The company, which has already seen huge pre-order figures, is expected to record its highest annual shipments of a phone in 8 years. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young has the details.
Following an unpacked event earlier this month, Samsung Electronics' Galaxy S24 series is out starting Wednesday. The lineup, including the S24, the S24 Plus, and the S24 Ultra, is now available in countries including the US, the UK, France, and India. The company plans to ultimately release the phones in 120 countries. The Galaxy S24 series saw an even bigger increase in global pre-order sales compared to the previous model. Not only that, the top-of-the-line Galaxy S24 Ultra is the most popular, accounting for 65% of the total. The latest series has broken the company's domestic pre-order record, surpassing the previous one set by last year's model. According to Samsung, pre-orders for the series in Korea came to over 1.2 million units. The surge in demand is driven by the addition of an on-device AI feature, which allows users to enjoy the cutting-edge technology of generative AI without connection to the cloud.
For me, the circle to search feature stands out the most in this series, as it allows you to search for items by drawing a circle on the screen while watching clips. I can definitely feel a big difference in speed and camera quality compared to previous models.
Another feature that captured customers' attention was real-time calls and text translations.
Customers are interested in how Live Translate works when making calls with non-Korean speakers. People seem to prefer the Galaxy S24 Ultra since it's the first ever Galaxy phone with a titanium frame. Also, users can enjoy clear photos with it.
Amid rising expectations that Apple's iPhone 16 launching later this year will incorporate generative AI, one expert says that the South Korean tech giant could have an advantage in the AI smartphone market.
Generative AI is expected to have a significant impact on the market. Considering Samsung's expertise in chip design and manufacturing as well, the widespread adoption of on-device AI could bring long-term benefits for the company.
The total annual shipments of the latest series are expected to reach 36 million units, the highest in 8 years since the Galaxy S7, which sold 49 million units in 2016. 신하영, Arirang News.
Registration for the 2024 Munha Nuri Card begins on Thursday in South Korea. The card, issued by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, gives discounts for entry to over 29,000 culture and sports-related sites across the country for people in low-income or vulnerable groups. This year, the subsidy has been raised to 130,000 Korean won, which is around $98, an 18% increase from 2023. First-time users can register for the card at community service centers on Nuri Card website or through the service's call center. Existing cards will be automatically recharged. Further details on eligibility can also be found on the Nuri Card website. North Korea says what it launched off its west coast on Tuesday was an existing strategic cruise missile. According to the North's state-run media on Wednesday, the regime's military conducted a missile launch drill involving Hwasar-2 cruise missiles. It added that the launch was aimed at checking the rapid counterattack posture and improving its strategic striking capability, and that it did not pose a threat to the safety of neighboring countries. The claims are seen as a way to highlight that the weapon is fully developed and has been deployed to frontline units. North Korea also released photos of the launch to show that the missile is capable of flying at low altitudes. Meanwhile, South Korea's ambassador to the U.S. has said that Seoul will not be swayed by Pyongyang's increasing provocations, and that Seoul will continue pursuing cooperation with Washington and Tokyo and dialogue with Pyongyang at the same time. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Speaking to reporters on Tuesday in Washington, South Korea's ambassador to the United States, Choi Hyun-dong, said Seoul will not be swayed by Pyongyang's continuous provocations and threats. According to Cho, in a situation where the North's aggressive rhetoric and provocations are increasing, South Korea will strengthen its cooperation with the U.S. and Japan. He also reiterated President Yoon Suk-yeol's remarks that Seoul will never be perturbed or will never bow to those provocations. Seoul's envoy to Washington said that despite the heightened tensions, South Korea and its allies will continue to push for dialogue with North Korea. But earlier reports say South Korea and the U.S. agree that although North Korea has recently continued to make high-intensity threats against South Korea, the North does not appear to be preparing for an all-out war. Meanwhile, North Korea continues to deny accusations that it transferred ballistic missiles to Russia. Speaking at the UN Conference on Disarmament in Geneva on Tuesday, acting ambassador to North Korea's permanent mission to Geneva, Bang Kwang-hyuk, stressed that there was no such transfer of weapons to Russia and that there's no reason to respond to groundless allegations created by the U.S. He also said the development of nuclear weapons and missile tests is exercising North Korea's right to self-defense. Bang also slammed the EU for only taking issue with North Korea's missile tests, while remaining silent about what he referred to as U.S. military provocations that pose a serious threat to peace and security on the Korean peninsula. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. President Joe Biden has once again vowed to respond to a drone attack near the Jordan-Syria border that killed 3 U.S. troops. Meanwhile, an Iran-backed militia group based in Iraq announced the suspension of all its military operations against U.S. troops in the region. Ian Jin reports.
On Tuesday, Iran-aligned Iraqi militia group Kataib Hezbollah announced the suspension of all its military operations against U.S. targets in the region, including any attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria. The group said that it made the decision to prevent embarrassment for the Iraqi government while it will support the fight in Gaza in other ways. A Pentagon spokesperson declined to give a detailed comment on the group's statement.
Yeah, we've seen those reports. I don't have a specific comment to provide other than actions speak louder than words.
Also on Tuesday, U.S. President Joe Biden promised that Washington would respond to attacks against U.S. targets at the weekend, which the Pentagon said looked like having been committed by Kataib Hezbollah, while avoiding a broader Middle East war. On Sunday, a deadly drone attack killed 3 U.S. service members and wounded more than 40 at a small base near the Jordan-Syria border. They were the first 3 American service members to be killed since the start of the war in Gaza, which has resulted in increased tensions in the region.
In terms of attribution for the attack, we know this is an IRGC-backed militia. It has the footprints of Kataib Hezbollah, but not making a final assessment on that. Our teams here are continuing to do the analysis, but we know that Iran is behind it.
Iran-aligned groups, known collectively as the Axis of Resistance, have been waging attacks against Israeli and U.S. targets from Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria since the breakout of the war in Gaza on October 7th. According to a U.S. military official, as of Tuesday, those groups have launched 166 attacks on U.S. military installations, including 67 in Iraq, 98 in Syria, and now 1 in Jordan. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
The South Korean men's national football team advanced to the AFC Asian Cup quarterfinals after defeating Saudi Arabia on penalties. In the round of 16 match taking place at Education City Stadium on Tuesday local time, Saudi Arabia went ahead right after the start of the second half. But late into 10 minutes of added-on injury time, South Korean striker Cho Kyu-sung came to the rescue with a headed goal, sending the match to extra time. And after both sides failed to score in the extra time, the match went to penalties. South Korean goalkeeper Cho Hyun-woo saved the third and fourth spot kicks, giving the Taegu Warriors a 4-2 win and a ticket to the quarterfinals. South Korea will now face Australia on Saturday, Korea time.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In Pakistan, the country's former Prime Minister, Imran Khan, was sentenced to 10 years in prison on Tuesday under the charge of leaking state secrets. The former international cricketer already began serving a 3-year prison sentence in August last year after being convicted of corruption. According to Khan's PTI party, the 71-year-old popular former PM and cricket superstar was found guilty of publicizing the contents of a secret message sent by Pakistan's ambassador in Washington to the government in Islamabad. Tuesday's legal proceedings, however, raised questions as they did not take place in a public courtroom. Instead, a closed court was set up under the Official Secrets Act in Rawalpindi's Adiala jail, where Khan is detained alongside his former foreign minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Khan's lawyers protested, saying that the trial was highly unconstitutional. The conviction comes only about a week before Pakistan's February 8th general election, where Khan is barred from standing. Imran Khan was ousted as a prime minister by his opponents within the PTI party in 2022. Tech billionaire Elon Musk's Neuralink company on Sunday implanted a wireless computer chip in a human brain for the first time. Posting on social media site X, Musk said that the patient is recovering well, as initial results show promising neuron spike detection. Musk said in another post that Neuralink's first product would be called Telepathy, which would enable people to control their phones or computers just by thinking. But the first users will be the people who have lost the use of their limbs. Elon Musk's Neuralink has been under scrutiny for safety protocols. It was recently fined for violating federal restrictions on the transport of hazardous materials. In May last year, Neuralink received US FDA clearance for the company's first human clinical trial. Moving over to Mexico, a highway collision on Tuesday between a cargo truck and a passenger bus has left at least 19 people dead and 18 injured. The passenger bus reportedly had a total of 37 people on board. According to the local news outlet N+, Mexican authorities have temporarily closed circulation on the highway, while the official death toll is yet to be announced. The accident took place in the Pacific coast state of Sinaloa, in the country's northwest, on the coastal highway that links the cities of Mazatlan and Los Mochis. The world's largest parcel delivery company, United Parcel Service, announced on Tuesday that it will lay off 12,000 employees as part of an effort to save the firm $1 billion in costs. UPS said that the managers and contractor positions will make up the majority of the cuts. The delivery service giant said that the volume, revenue, and operating profits declined in the last quarter across all its business segments, including the new contract with the Teamsters Union, which increased the company's labor costs. At the end of 2023, the UPS had about 495,000 employees globally. Kim Xiang, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The last day of January began under cloudy skies in most places, and those in southern provinces need an umbrella, while people in central parts of the country need a quality face mask. In fact, Sejong and Chungcheong-Namdo province are under emergency fine dust reduction measures today. Meanwhile, rain in the south should let up in the afternoon, but Jeju will see rain through tonight with up to 10 millimeters in the forecast. But the rain-free region will see sunnier skies as the day goes on. Then afternoon highs are 1 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday. Seoul and Chuncheon getting up to 9 degrees, Jeju topping out at 15 degrees Celsius. Athletes in Gangwon-do should notice much warmer temperatures under brighter skies with decent air quality there. Fine weather is in the forecast for you today. Meanwhile, Ipchun, the onset of spring on the seasonal calendar, is right around the corner. But the East Coast is forecast to receive heavy snowfall at the end of this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Behind North Korea's increased hostility towards South Korea may be threats that Kim Jong-un faces from his own regime, especially the younger generations who are increasingly exposed to South Korean culture. Earlier this month, rare footage was released showing 2 teenagers sentenced to 12 years of hard labor for watching and distributing K-dramas. Since 2020, North Korea banned any South Korean cultural content and even copying hairstyles, with violators potentially facing death. This is what Kim Jong-un is battling at home, pushing him to spur the enemy perception of the South, as his primary agenda now is to control people's ideology to sustain his regime, not a full-scale war. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.